Hi, Slater Crusaders. Welcome back to Liberty on Lockdown. An honor to talk to our next guest, Harvard professor and author of Guilt by Accusation, the challenge of proving innocence in the age of Me Too, Professor Alan Dershowitz. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. You know, back in 1970, I wrote a series of articles about civil liberties during times of emergency. And let me tell you, it's really coming to fruition, all the points I made in that article and those articles and in a couple of books that I've written. This is a very complicated constitutional issue. We've never had a precedent for this before. We've had pandemics before, but the last major pandemic was 1917, 1918, and the constitutional law wasn't as sophisticated or established as it is today. And yet there are still many, many issues that remain unresolved.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, so what has changed from 1918 to today constitutionally or Supreme Court-wise?
I think the Supreme Court has become much more sensitive to civil liberties. Back in 1905, for example, the Supreme Court, without any dissent, said, of course, mandatory vaccinations are constitutionally permissible. The declaration of martial law has been upheld and sustained. Today, I think there'd be more litigation about many of those issues. The country is more deeply divided. The constitutional law is, if anything, less settled now than it was back then. And so I think we're in for a period of time in which there will be a lot of litigation, and I suspect some 5 to 4 Supreme Court decisions.
Wow. Okay, let's roll through a bunch of them. So maybe, I know you made a lot of news last week or so with vaccines. So you want to rehash that and maybe what is our constitutional right to not have a vaccine?
Well, it depends on the vaccine. If the vaccine is safe and effective and necessary to prevent or control pandemics, then I think the Supreme Court, not 5 to 4, but 8 to 1 or 9 to nothing, would uphold mandatory vaccinations with exclusions for people who have medical conditions. And it would have to be a vaccine that's designed for public health. For example, if they suddenly developed a vaccine for cancer or for heart disease, that could not be compulsory. You have the right to save your own life or to risk your own life, but you don't have the right to be Typhoid Mary. You don't have the right to walk around contagious and infect other people. If you're prepared to stay in your home and be isolated and quarantined during the pandemic or for the rest of your life for that matter, then you can avoid being vaccinated. But for example, many states now require vaccination of children as a condition for going to public school because they don't want to contaminate other people. That's been universally upheld. So I suspect that the Supreme Court would uphold vaccination. Look, people say you can't take our liberty away, but the Supreme Court has upheld the draft. What could be more imposing on liberty than being drafted and risking your own life? And by the way, when you're drafted, you have to get vaccinated. You have to get a lot of injections when you're drafted. If the draft is constitutional to protect the national interest, I would think it's a pretty easy case that vaccine is constitutional as long as the conditions that I've set out are met.
Slater Crusaders, thanks for watching The First on YouTube. If you want more, like, subscribe. We got plenty.